Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at a wine from Bordeaux. It's from the 2018 vintage, and here I've come to Castillon Cotes de Bordeaux, so we're on the right bank. It's a 2018 Chateau Montlandrie. Chateau Montlandrie was established by an Italian family back in the 1800s. I believe under a different name. I've not been able to find out what that was, because it was bought in 2009 by a famous local winemaker, Denis Durantou. And Denis is famous for running Château L'Église-Clinet, and also has Saint-Emilion properties, Saint-Emilion, and has properties in Lalande de Pomerol, Le Creusel and Le Chenard. So he purchased this property in 2009 in what had been up until then the Cotes de Castillon, and actually it was 2009 that the designation changed and became Cotes de Bordeaux Castillon. So the appellation stayed more or less the same, but the name changed. It's a 12-hectare estate, although not all of it is actually planted. I've seen varying values for the area of vineyard, somewhere between 4.5 and 11 hectares. Possibly that's reflecting the replanting that Durantou did after 2009. And he really has turned the reputation of the property around. I mean, it was almost unheard of prior to his ownership. So in the vineyard, he's changed the varietal mix quite significantly, planting 15% of Cabernet Sauvignon in the vineyard, which is quite unusual for these cooler soils on the right bank. The vineyard being planted predominantly with Merlot is much more usual in this area, and the remaining 20% is Cabernet Franc. The vineyards here on a gentle slopes on the plateau of Castillon, and they're about 80 metres above sea level. There's a clay limestone mix in the soil, and the vineyard is in one block comprising 15 different plots, very near a distinctive ruined windmill that is a little bit of a landmark in Cotes de Castillon. Vine age is about 25 years for the mature vines, and then obviously the Cabernet Sauvignon, which is newly planted here, is much younger, and that's actually been planted with specially selected clones. The cooler terroir here means that picking's that little bit later. So this particular wine was harvested entirely in October, with the Merlot and the Cabernet Franc being picked from the 1st to the 5th, and the Cabernet Sauvignon being harvested on the 8th of October. The blend of the wine is 75% Merlot with 20% Cabernet Franc, and the remaining 5% being Cabernet Sauvignon. The fruit's entirely hand harvested. Fermentation goes on in 15 small stainless steel open top fermenters, and the size of those is varied according to the plot in the vineyard. So there are 15 plots, there are 15 fermenters, so each plot is vinified separately and the wines are kept separate until the blending stage. The fact that they're open top fermenters would make me think that it's probable there's a certain amount of punching down as well as pump overs going here to manage tannic extraction. And the wine stays in the vats to do its malolactic conversion after the end of alcoholic fermentation. It's then transferred into French oak barrels, almost certainly 225 litre barriques, of which 40% of those are new each year. So what I'm expecting here is quite a rich style from what is a relatively warm vintage, 2018, and that richness being enhanced by a fairly generous use of exotic new oak. 2018 was Denis Durantou's penultimate vintage. He did his last vintage in 2019 and unfortunately passed away in the first half of 2020. The legacy he leaves in the estates that he's run and that he's built up is an enormous one. I think certainly what I've read of Montlandrie and also Le Richness and Le Creusel are wines that are popular and made in a modern, rich, ripe style that's very appealing. So let's have a look at the wine and see if it's this out. Looking at it to begin with, I have a wine here that is deep and dark. It's practically opaque. I can just see a glint of the glass in the bottom there. It's a sort of an almost inky ruby red. It keeps its colour well to the rim. So let's have a look at the aroma, shall we? Swirling it, the wine is 15.5% alcohol. I'm surprised it's not actually clinging to the glass a little more enthusiastically than that. I suppose, yes, it is starting to form some tears there, but I'm expecting this to be quite a rich, full-bodied wine. So let's see what we'll make of the aromas. Oh gosh, yes, there really is a rich, very ripe sort of raisin, prune, ripe black cherry sort of note on the fruit, on the aromas. Underlying that are plenty of notes of vanilla and chocolate. There's a really opulent ripeness on the nose. There may be hints of exotic oak spices there, but it's the fruit that's very much the fore. Yeah, there are juicy top notes of blueberry and that sort of thing. So it's for taste, shall we? On the palate, the wine is rich and juicy. There's an initial freshness, but there's some quite obvious warmth and richness and concentration coming from the alcohol. The wine almost sort of starts off with this sort of rich black cherry, and almost instantly comes a sort of a sweet black licorice sort of note. And there's a fine, drying, grainy tannin that starts the wine off. The wine's medium bodied. I mean, it's 14.5% alcohol, so as expected, it has a richness and a warmth. And actually, that warmth is quite obvious. There's a sort of a lifted, almost sort of spirity sort of note. It's certainly very high toned, and it is that slight prune note of high ripeness, prune and raisin. And yet the acidity is sufficient that it's giving a juiciness to the sort of the black cherry notes, and they're starting to show past the structure more on the finish. So there's enough freshness that even with the quite high alcohol and the rich, quite structured mid-palate, that juicy black fruit is showing through on the finish and giving some quite nice length. The tannins, as I say, are fine. There are coffee notes, there are vanilla notes, and there are notes of clean cedar on the mid-palate. But actually there's a velvetiness to the texture, and they are fairly supple. There's an initial grip, but they tend to meld with the sort of the really ripe fruit on the finish. And the finish is quite rounded with juicy black fruit. The wine's attractive. I think it might benefit from a further year or two in bottle, just to help smooth out those initial tannins. There's perhaps a slight earthy rustic touch on the mid-palate, but generally this is a really lovely, juicy modern wine with quite forward primary fruit. It's attractive as a young wine. It's not necessarily a wine that you'd look for if you're looking for elegance, but for a wine that's not at a particularly high price point or from a particularly prestigious appellation, this is offering some real intensity, richness, some good balance. I mean, there's a lovely fruit on the finish, and I think that's a really good sign for the way that the wine will age. It'll probably age for 5 or 6 years quite happily, possibly up to 10 years. But once it's got past an initial slightly sort of drying, grainy grip, I think this is a wine that will be very attractive and very open and inviting to drink, and probably won't need long aging. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found the video of interest. If you have, do please press the like button. It would be great to have your approval. Do also please consider signing up and following us on YouTube. We would love to have your support. Any comments you have, do please leave those in the comments box below. We'd really like some feedback on the wines we're looking at, the tastings we're doing, or anything else related to that. But most importantly, do please try and find the time to come and join us again for another tasting in the very near future, won't you? Thanks again. Bye for now.